The October evening greeted Meredith Randall Holbrook with a chilly wind and drizzling rain. Boston seemed to be deliberately displaying every shade of gray, from pearl-colored clouds to graphite-colored asphalt. After sunny Europe, her hometown seemed particularly gloomy. The taxi driver dropped her off at a three-story Victorian mansion on Beacon Hill, where she and Tate had lived for the past 8 years. Meredith climbed the steps of the porch, holding the hem of her beige cashmere coat. The sound of her heels echoed in the evening silence. She took out her keys but hesitated for a second before opening the door. After 2 weeks of traveling around Europe's architectural landmarks, she had grown homesick, not so much for the house itself as for her familiar routine. The spacious hall was silent. Only the ticking of an antique grandfather clock broke the silence. Meredith flicked the light switch, and warm light flooded the room, dancing on the polished oak paneling. She took off her coat and hung it in the closet. "Tate?" Her voice echoed through the house. There was no answer. On the table by the stairs was a note written in her husband's sweeping handwriting. "Business dinner with clients. Will be late. Love." Meredith pursed her lips. In 15 years of marriage, she had learned to recognize his lies even in writing. She went upstairs, noticing that the house was unusually cool. The thermostat must be malfunctioning again. In the bedroom, Meredith headed straight for the massive safe, cleverly disguised as a bookcase. Her fingers dialed the combination, 6 digits, their wedding date. The safe opened with a soft click. Inside, everything was in perfect order: documents, cash, several folders with important papers. But the velvet box containing the Randall family jewels was gone. Meredith froze. Her heart skipped a beat, then began to pound wildly. She looked through the contents of the safe again, as if the box could somehow have been lost among the papers. The sapphire and diamond necklace, the earrings and the bracelet had been passed down through the women of her family since 1852. Her great-great-grandmother had received the jewelry as a wedding gift from her husband, a successful Boston shipowner. "Calm down," Meredith told herself. She closed the safe and slowly sank into a chair by the window. Options raced through her mind. Maybe Tate had put the box in a bank deposit box. But why, without telling her? Or an unpleasant thought struck her. Meredith took out her phone and dialed her husband's number. Rings. More rings. "The subscriber cannot answer your call. Please leave a message after the tone." She didn't leave a message. Instead, she went downstairs and headed for her husband's study. She usually respected his privacy, but now was not the time for niceties. The desk was perfectly tidy, except for a forgotten check from Mistress restaurant that caught her eye. The bill was for $820 paid yesterday. 2 people. At the bottom was Tate's sweeping signature and the name of the second guest, Desiree Vaughn. Meredith carefully put the check back in its place. She sat down in her husband's leather chair, feeling a cold rage growing inside her. She didn't know any Desiree Vaughn, but she was sure it wasn't a business partner. Tate never took clients to Mistress. It was too intimate for business negotiations. Time dragged agonizingly slowly. Meredith didn't go up to the bedroom. She waited for her husband in the living room, sitting in the dark. Only the table lamp cast a warm circle of light on the open book in her hands. However, she didn't read a single line. At the beginning of the first chapter, the front door opened quietly. She heard cautious footsteps. Tate was clearly hoping she was already asleep. "Good evening," Meredith said, and her husband started, surprised. "Meredith, you're back already." He tried to sound happy, but it came out fake. "Why didn't you tell me? I would have picked you up at the airport." "And miss my business dinner?" She stood up and moved closer. Tate smelled of expensive perfume, but not his usual scent. Women's perfume. There was a faint trace of lipstick on the collar of his snow-white shirt. "Yes, you know, an important client." Where are the jewels, Tate? He froze mid-sentence. In the light of the desk lamp, he could see his face turn pale. What? The Randall family jewels. They're not in the safe. Where are they? You must have put them somewhere else before you left. Don't lie to me. Her voice rang with suppressed anger. I checked the safe right before I left. They were there. Where are they now? Tate unbuttoned his shirt collar as if he suddenly found it difficult to breathe. Listen, dear. And who is Desiree Vaughn? He flinched as if he had been slapped. For a second, fear flashed in his eyes, but he quickly regained his composure. A client of the bank. We were discussing an investment portfolio. At Mitral? Meredith moved closer to him. With lipstick on your collar? Tate took a step back, stumbling over the coffee table. It's not what you think. Really? Then explain to me what it is. Explain why my family's jewels are missing. Jewels that have been passed down from generation to generation for over 150 years. He faltered, avoiding her gaze. I need a drink. Tate darted to the bar and poured himself a whiskey with shaking hands. He took a big gulp. They're in a safe place, he finally said. I'll return them in a couple of days. You gave them to her? Meredith asked quietly. You gave the Randall family jewels to your mistress? The silence spoke louder than any answer. Meredith felt nausea rising in her throat. 15 years of marriage. 15 years she had trusted this man, loved him, supported his career. And this was how he repaid her. Get out, she said. Now. Meredith, let's talk. Get out of my house. You have a week to return the jewelry. Every single piece. After that, we'll discuss the terms of the divorce. Don't jump to conclusions. His voice took on a pleading tone. I can explain everything. 1 week, Tate. And if a single stone is damaged. She didn't finish her sentence. There was no need. He knew what the Randall family was capable of when it came to honor. Meredith turned and walked toward the stairs, her steps deliberate. Only when she reached her bedroom and locked the door did she allow herself to collapse into a chair and cover her face with her hands. Inside, she felt empty and hurt, as if someone had ripped her heart out. But she didn't cry. Randalls don't cry. They act. She didn't sleep a wink that night, methodically working out a plan of action. By dawn, the first steps had been mapped out. Tate had made a huge mistake in underestimating her. Well, he would soon realize how badly he had miscalculated, and so would his girlfriend. Outside, it was beginning to get light. The new day promised to be as gray and damp as yesterday. But Meredith didn't care anymore. She had a goal, and she knew how to achieve it. After all, revenge is a dish best served cold. The Bistro du Midi restaurant greeted Meredith with a muffled hum of voices and the clatter of cutlery. She had deliberately chosen this place, busy enough for their conversation to remain private, but not so popular that she would bump into anyone she knew. The maitre d' led her to a table in the far corner of the room, with a view of Boston Common. Lauren Page was already waiting for her. Tate's personal assistant was visibly nervous, fidgeting with her napkin and repeatedly adjusting her thin-rimmed glasses. When she saw Meredith, she stood up, but Meredith gestured for her to sit down. "Thank you for agreeing to meet, Lauren," Meredith said, sitting down. "I hope you understand why I asked for this meeting." Lauren nodded, avoiding direct eye contact. "Mrs. Holbrook, Please, call me Meredith. We've known each other for 5 years." The waiter approached. Meredith ordered a green salad and mineral water. She wasn't hungry at all, but she had to keep up appearances. Lauren chose chicken soup. "I know I'm putting you in an awkward position," Meredith continued when the waiter had left, "but I need the truth, the whole truth." Lauren took a deep breath. "I've wanted to tell you for a long time, but Mr. Holbrook, he's my boss, and I couldn't." "I understand. When did it start?" "In April. At a charity event for a children's hospital. Desiree was one of the models in the fashion show. Mr. Holbrook noticed her right away." Meredith remembered that evening. She hadn't been able to go because she had an important meeting with clients in Chicago. Tell me about her. Desiree Vaughn, 29 years old. She works as a model at the elite agency. Not one of the most sought after, but she's keeping her head above water. She lives in Back Bay in an apartment that... Lauren hesitated. That my husband pays for? Meredith asked calmly. Yes. He rented her a penthouse on Marlborough Street, and he bought her a car, a red Porsche. The waiter brought their order. Meredith took a sip of water, her throat feeling dry. How often do they meet? Lauren took out her phone. I have Mr. Holbrook's appointment calendar, usually 2 or 3 times a week, sometimes more. She showed the screen to Meredith. Here, look, business dinners, meetings with investors. In reality, all of these are meetings with her. Meredith looked through the dates. Many evenings when Tate had said he was staying late at work. It all added up. Do you have any photos of her? Lauren started scrolling through her phone again. From the last bank party. She came as James Porter's date, but spent the whole evening with Mr. Holbrook. In the photo, Desiree Vaughn looked exactly as Meredith had imagined her, a striking brunette with a slender figure and predatory eyes. She was wearing a form-fitting black dress, and around her neck. Meredith clenched her fists under the table. The Randall family necklace was on display. When was this? 3 days ago. I'm sorry, I should have told you earlier. Don't apologize, Lauren. It's not your fault. Meredith took an envelope out of her purse. Here's a check for $10,000. Consider it a reward for your honesty. No, you can't. I can't accept this. You can. You must. Meredith pushed the envelope closer. I have one more question. Do you know a good private investigator? Lauren hesitated, then took a business card out of her bag. Ezra Flint. He worked for the bank when they were investigating several employees. He's very discreet and efficient. Meredith took the card. Thank you, Lauren. And one more thing. If Tate asks about this meeting, what meeting? Lauren smiled faintly. I was just having lunch alone. When her husband's assistant left, Meredith sat for a while, looking out the window at the falling leaves in the park. The picture was gradually coming together. Now she had to act quickly and decisively. She took out her phone and dialed the number on the card. Mr. Flint? My name is Meredith Randall Holbrook. I need your help gathering some information. When can we meet? The detective agreed to meet in an hour at his office. Meredith paid the bill and left the restaurant. A cool breeze ruffled her hair, but she didn't notice. The photo of Desiree Vaughn wearing her great-grandmother's necklace was spinning in her head. Well, soon this upstart would learn what it meant to cross the Randall family. In the taxi on the way to the detective's office, Meredith opened her laptop and began her own investigation. Desiree's social media was full of glamorous photos and hashtags about her success and luxurious life. But something told Meredith that there was a much more interesting story behind this facade, and she was going to get to the bottom of it. The taxi stopped at an inconspicuous office building in the business district. Meredith adjusted her pearl earrings, the only jewelry she was wearing today. It was time to get to work. After all, information was power, and power was exactly what she needed right now. Tate, meet me at Sorellina's at 8. We need to talk. The short message she had sent that morning left no room for refusal. Their favorite restaurant, where they celebrated all their important events, seemed the perfect place for the conversation that was about to take place. Meredith arrived early on purpose. She sat down at their usual table by the window, which overlooked the harbor. Marco, the waiter who had known them for years, brought her a glass of Chablis, her favorite wine. Will Mr. Holbrook be joining you? Yes, he'll be here any minute. She stared at the amber glints in her glass, remembering how she had accidentally discovered the documents in her husband's home office a year ago. Tate had been careless, leaving the folder on the table when he was called to the bank in the middle of the night. Meredith hadn't intended to spy, she just wanted to tidy up the office, but the figures in the documents made her suspicious. Fictitious accounts, inflated commissions, dubious transactions through offshore companies. She made copies and hid them in a safe place, not out of mistrust, just in case. And now that case had come. Tate arrived at 8 o'clock sharp, as always impeccable in his gray Tom Ford suit. He leaned in to kiss her on the cheek, but Meredith pulled away slightly. "I ordered you an 18-year-old Macallan," she said as he sat down. "I think you're going to need it." Tate tensed. He was always good at reading moods. It helped him with his clients. "Meredith, if this is about the jewelry—" "No, dear, not just about that." She took a sip of wine. "It's about a deal I want to offer you." "A deal?" His eyebrows shot up in surprise. "Exactly. You see, I have something interesting." She took an envelope out of her purse and placed it on the table. "For example, documents showing how you help several of the bank's clients evade taxes through shell companies in the Cayman Islands. Or details of how you manipulated investment fund commissions. Very informative reading." Tate paled. His hand, reaching for his whiskey glass, trembled slightly. "How did you get—" "It doesn't matter. What matters is that copies of these documents are in a safe place. And if all the jewelry isn't returned to me in perfect condition within a week, these papers will end up on the chairman's desk." "You're bluffing," he said hoarsely. Meredith smiled and took out her phone. She opened a photo of one of the documents with his signature. "Really? Want to check?" Marco approached to take their order, but Meredith shook her head. "Thanks, but we'll skip dinner tonight." When the waiter left, Tate leaned forward. "You won't do this. It will destroy my career." "How did you destroy our marriage?" Her voice remained calm, but a cold gleam flashed in her eyes. "I'll give you a week, Tate. 7 days. During that time, you will take all the jewelry from your girlfriend and return it to me. Every single piece, in perfect condition. It's not that simple." "Oh, I'm sure you can manage. You're so resourceful when you want to be." She stood up, smoothing the folds of her dress. "And yes, if you try to warn anyone at the bank or cover your tracks, the documents will be sent to the appropriate authorities immediately. You do realize this is blackmail, don't you?" His voice took on an angry tone. "No, dear. It's business. You like to call everything just business, don't you?" She buttoned her coat. 7 days, Tate. The clock is ticking." Meredith headed for the exit, feeling his gaze between her shoulder blades. At the door, she turned around. Tate was sitting hunched over an untouched glass of whiskey, looking truly frightened for the first time in 15 years of marriage. A light rain was falling outside. Meredith got into a taxi and gave the driver her lawyer's address. It was time to prepare the divorce papers. She took out her phone and dialed the number of her private investigator. "Mr. Flint? How's the investigation into Miss Vaughn going?" "Excellent. Yes, I'm particularly interested in her finances and her past. And please check all the jewelry stores in town in case she tries to get rid of certain items." Hanging up, Meredith leaned back in her seat. She had a long week ahead of her, but she knew she would win this war. After all, she was a Randall long before she was a Holbrook, and Randalls never lose. The day began for Tate Holbrook with a headache and shaky hands. After yesterday's conversation with Meredith, he had hardly slept, tossing and turning in his bed at the Four Seasons. The double espresso he drank on an empty stomach only heightened his anxiety. An unusual silence greeted him at the bank. Usually, the employees would greet him, smile, and try to exchange a few words, but today, everyone seemed to be avoiding his gaze. At the elevator, he bumped into James Porter, a member of the board of directors. "Ah, Holbrook." Porter nodded without extending his hand. "Come see me after lunch. We need to discuss your candidacy for the position of CFO." Tate felt a chill run down his spine. "Sure. 2 o'clock?" 2 o'clock, Porter said, giving him a cold stare. And bring the report on Asian investments. There are some discrepancies in the figures. In his office, Tate's first move was to dial Desiree's number. She answered after the fifth ring, her voice sounding sleepy and capricious. "Honey, it's so early. We need to meet. Today." "I can't today. I have a shoot." "It's important." He tried to sound calm, but his voice betrayed him. "It's about the jewels." "Oh, you liked how I looked in them at the party?" Her voice took on a purring tone. "That's all anyone was talking about." "That's why I'm in deep shit," Tate thought, but said aloud, "Listen, those jewels, I need them back." There was a pause. "What do you mean, back?" "They're a gift." "Desiree, honey, they're family heirlooms. They have to—" "I don't care." Her voice rose to a shriek. "You gave them to me. They're mine. I'll make it up to you. I'll buy you something from Cartier." "Don't you dare!" She hung up. Tate dropped his head into his hands. The computer beeped on the desk, an email from the chief auditor with questions about the quarterly report. He opened the file, but the numbers blurred before his eyes. The phone rang again. This time it was Brad McKinley, his old friend and lawyer. "Tate, can you come over? We need to talk." "Now's not a good time. It's about Meredith and the documents she has." Half an hour later, Tate was sitting in a leather chair in Brad's office, sipping scotch that his friend kept for special occasions. "You're in deep, old man." Brad shook his head. "Deep in trouble. Do you think she'll really do it?" "Meredith?" Brad snorted. "You can bet your ass she will. The Randalls are known for their principles, but it'll ruin my career. What did you expect? You gave your mistress the family jewels. Damn it, Tate. What were you thinking?" "Desiree, she's special. You don't understand." "No, you don't understand." Brad leaned forward. "If those documents get to the board of directors, you won't just be fired. You'll be tried. It's a criminal offense, buddy." Tate turned even paler. "What should I do?" "Get those damn jewels back, right now, whatever it takes." "Desiree won't just give them back." "Then find a way to get them back. Break into her apartment if you have to. Just get them back before Meredith carries out her threat." Back at the bank, Tate found 3 missed calls from Porter and an angry letter from the auditor. He opened the report, trying to concentrate, but all he could see was Meredith's face when she said, 7 days. The phone rang. This time it was Desiree. "Honey, I was thinking, maybe we could have dinner tonight. I'll wear that necklace." Tate clenched the receiver so tightly that his knuckles turned white. "Yes, of course. 8 o'clock?" 9. At Mistral. He hung up and took out his personal driver's phone. "Joe, I need a favor. Find out where Desiree Vaughn is shooting today. And keep an eye on her. I need to know when she leaves her apartment." He had an hour before he was due to meet Porter. Tate opened the safe and took out a spare shirt. He was drenched in sweat from the tension. The mirror reflected his gaunt face with dark circles under his eyes. 6 days flashed through his mind. Only 6 days to save his career, his reputation, and possibly his freedom. He took out his phone and dialed the number of the locksmith who had once changed the locks at his and Meredith's house. "I need a job, urgently, confidential. I'll pay well." A plan began to form in his head. Risky, perhaps even crazy, but he had no other options. The penthouse on Marlborough Street was lit up. Tate took the elevator, clutching a small Cartier box in his jacket pocket, a diversion. Desiree opened the door in a silk robe, a martini in her hand. "Honey, you're early." She reached out to kiss him, but Tate pulled away. "We need to talk." The apartment he rented for her for $4,000 a month was filled with boxes from luxury brands. On the coffee table lay jewelry, his gifts to her over the past 6 months, but there was no sign of the family heirlooms. "What do you want to talk about?" Desiree sank onto the sofa, crossing her legs. About your wife finding out about us? Tate froze. How did you? Oh, rumors spread quickly, dear, especially in certain circles. She took a sip of her martini. Do you know how many interview requests I've already received? What? Um, the Boston Globe is offering a very good fee, and the tabloids, she smiled. They're very interested in the story of how the heir to an old Boston family fell in love with a model. Desiree, listen. No, you listen. Her voice became harsh. I'm not going to give the jewelry back. It's mine. It was a gift from a man who loved me. Tate took out the box. I'll buy you others. Better ones. More expensive ones. She laughed. Do you really think it's about the money? Oh no, dear. The thing is, these jewels are part of a story. They make me part of your world. They've belonged to the Randall family for over 150 years. And now, they belong to me. She stood up and walked over to the dressing table. She opened the box and took out the necklace. Do you think I should wear it to the next charity ball? I could sue you. Really? She laughed again. And what would you tell the judge? That you gave your mistress your wife's family jewels? Oh, wait. She picked up her phone. I have something better. She opened her gallery and showed him the screen. Their intimate photos, correspondence, promises to divorce and marry her. You planned all this? His voice broke. Of course, dear. Do you think I happened to be at that charity event by chance? Or met James Porter by chance? She stroked her necklace. I chose you. Rich, married, ambitious, and so naive. Tate felt everything boiling inside him. Give me back the jewelry. Or else. She narrowed her eyes. Are you going to hit me? Go ahead. I've already turned on the recording on my phone. He took a step toward her. Desiree jumped back, knocking over the table. The glass shattered, shards scattering across the floor. Don't come near me, she raised her voice. I'll scream. You know I'll take them anyway, don't you? Just try. Tomorrow, all the newspapers will print our story. With photos. She grabbed her phone. I wonder what the board of directors will say. And your precious Meredith? There was a knock at the door. Miss Vaughn? Is everything all right? Help! Desiree screamed. He's trying to rob me. Tate rushed to the door, but it was too late. The concierge was already standing there with a phone in his hand. I called the police. No need for the police. Tate raised his hands. I'm leaving. Oh no, honey. Desiree followed him out, rubbing her wrist demonstratively. You're not going anywhere. Let everyone know how you broke into my apartment and threatened me. Police sirens could already be heard below. Tate looked at Desiree. She was smiling, playing with her necklace. You do realize I'm not going to let this go, don't you? He asked quietly. Of course, dear. She leaned closer and whispered. But by the time you do anything, your life will be ruined. By the way, don't forget to read tomorrow's newspapers. The elevator doors opened, revealing 2 police officers. Tate slowly turned toward them, feeling his world crumble. 6 days had turned into a few hours, and he had no idea what to do next. Ezra Flint's office smelled of coffee and old leather. The private investigator laid out photographs and documents in front of Meredith, methodically piecing together the life story of Desiree Vaughn, or rather, Diana Vasquez. She changed her name 5 years ago. Flint tapped his finger on the name change certificate. Before that, she managed to rack up an impressive record: petty fraud, credit card theft, attempted blackmail. But she always got away with it. Her victims dropped their claims. Meredith studied the photos carefully. Desiree looked completely different in them. Simple clothes, dark hair, no glamour. How did she avoid punishment? The classic scheme. Flint took a sip of coffee. She would meet wealthy married men, get gifts, and then threaten to tell their wives everything. They usually preferred to pay her off. And no one ever went to court? Reputation is more important than money, Mrs. Holbrook, especially for people in certain circles. Meredith nodded. She understood that logic perfectly. What else? Debts. Lots of debts. Flint pulled out a new stack of documents. Credit cards, unpaid rent, loans from shady characters. About 6 months ago, all the debts were suddenly paid off. When the affair with my husband began, Meredith took the document. The amounts? The total is about $300,000. Meredith took out her phone and opened Tate's bank statements, which she had found in his office. Here, 3 transfers of $100,000 to Divvy Coal Sailing. Is that hers? Flint whistled. Yes, one of the front companies. But what's interesting is that the money didn't come from Mr. Holbrook's personal account. A corporate bank account. Meredith clutched the folder. He used company money. This is serious, Mrs. Holbrook. A criminal offense. I know, she stood up. Send me the complete file and keep watching him. An hour later, Meredith entered the main office of Boston Trust Bank. The security guard nodded respectfully. She was well known here. After all, she was the chair of the bank's charitable foundation. The secretary to the chairman of the board of directors, Robert Harrington, immediately showed her into his office. Meredith, dear. Harrington rose to greet her. What a pleasant surprise. Robert, we need to talk about the charity evening and some other things. He looked at her intently. Other things? For example, how some bank employees are using corporate funds for personal purposes. Meredith took out a folder. And how this could affect the bank's reputation. Harrington slowly sank into his chair. I'm listening. An hour and a half later, Meredith left the bank with a slight smile. Harrington had understood correctly. A small hint of a possible scandal, and an internal audit had already begun checking all of Tate's department's transactions. The phone rang in the car. It was Flint. Mrs. Holbrook, I have something interesting. Miss Vaughn met with a reporter from the Boston Globe today. Excellent, Meredith smiled. Let her talk. The more noise she makes, the better. Do you have any contacts at the newspaper? Of course. Great. I think they'll be interested in the story of a con artist with a criminal past trying to blackmail a respected Boston family. She hung up and took out the family locket, the only piece of jewelry Tate hadn't been able to give his mistress. Inside was an old photograph of her great-grandmother wearing the very necklace that now adorned Desiree's neck. Don't worry, Meredith whispered, looking at the photo. I'll get everything back, and I'll make them pay. The usual business bustle reigned in Tate's office reception area when Meredith walked in at exactly 10 o'clock. Lauren, his assistant, jumped up from her desk, but Meredith gestured for her to stay. Don't bother. I'll just be a minute. She entered her husband's office without knocking. Tate was on the phone, but when he saw his wife, he turned pale and quickly ended the conversation. Meredith, what are you doing here? She placed a thin, leather-bound folder on the desk. I think you should take a look at this. The documents on the deal with the Singapore Fund are particularly interesting. Tate opened the folder and began looking through the papers. With each page, his face grew paler. Where did you get this? What's more important is where these documents might end up, Meredith said, sitting down on the edge of the desk. You know, I had lunch with Harriet King yesterday. Remember her? She's the deputy state's attorney now. Tate swallowed hard. You wouldn't dare. Why not? You didn't hesitate to give your mistress someone else's jewelry. I'll sort things out with Desiree. Really? How's that going? Meredith took out her phone. Especially after yesterday's scandal at her apartment. By the way, did the police press charges? How did you? I have my sources. And you know what? Time is running out. There are only 4 days left. At that moment, Tate's phone vibrated. Desiree's name appeared on the screen. He quickly dismissed the call. Problems in paradise? Meredith asked mockingly. Listen. Tate stood up and walked over to her. Let's talk. I'll fix everything. We can start over. Start over? Meredith stood up. Do you really think that after everything that's happened I want anything to do with you? I love you. No, Tate. You only love yourself. And right now, you're afraid of losing everything you have. She headed for the door. 4 days. Then the papers will be sent to the right addresses. The phone vibrated again, and again, and again. You better answer it, Meredith said, turning back at the door. Your girlfriend sounds nervous. As soon as she left, Tate grabbed the phone. Desiree, I can't right now. You bastard! Her screams could be heard even without the speakerphone. You think you can just barge into my apartment like that? I already spoke to the press. What? No. Wait. It's too late. The story will be out tomorrow. Everyone will know what you really are. Desiree, please. Oh, and don't forget to tell your precious wife that those trinkets are mine now, forever. She hung up. Tate threw the phone on the table in despair and grabbed his head. The folder with the documents lay in front of him like a death sentence. Lauren peeked in the door. Mr. Holbrook, the board of directors, is on the line. They want to discuss this morning's article in the Boston Globe. What article? About possible financial irregularities in the bank's Asian division. Tate opened his browser. The headline on the newspaper's homepage read, Shady Dealings at Boston Trust, Investigation. The phone rang again. This time, the number of the chairman of the board of directors appeared on the display. In the reception area, Lauren heard her boss groan and something crash to the floor. In the taxi taking Meredith home, she looked through the messages from the private investigator. The information about Desiree's past was very interesting. Very, very interesting. It was time for the next move. There were 20 minutes left until the agreed time. Tate glanced nervously at his watch as he sat in his car across from Desiree's house. Joe, his driver, confirmed that she had left for a photo shoot and would not be back before 6 in the evening. Sitting with him in the car was a nondescript man in overalls, a locksmith whom Tate had paid triple the usual rate for his urgency and discretion. Let's go, Tate commanded, noticing that the concierge had stepped away from the desk. The penthouse was in disarray, clothes scattered everywhere, empty glasses, jewelry boxes. The mechanic picked the lock in a minute. Wait in the hallway. Tate handed him a few bills. If you see her, call me right away. He methodically searched the apartment, feeling his heart pound. In the bedroom, he found the first box, earrings with sapphires. In the bathroom, he found a bracelet carelessly tossed near the sink. But the main item, the necklace, was nowhere to be found. Time was running out. Tate frantically pulled out drawers and checked closets. Finally, in the dressing room, in a safe behind a stack of designer bags, he found a velvet case. His hands trembled as he opened it. The necklace glinted in the dim light, the family heirloom. Tate carefully placed it in his briefcase with the rest of the jewelry. Then he began to gather all the gifts he had given her over the past few months. Rings, bracelets, watches. What are you doing? He spun around. Desiree was standing in the doorway, disheveled, her face contorted with rage. You shouldn't have come back so early. And you shouldn't have broken into my apartment. She rushed at him, trying to grab the briefcase. Thief! Robber! These are my things. He stepped back, holding on to the briefcase. More precisely, my family's things. Yours? She burst out laughing, and there was nothing of the charming woman he had known in that laughter. You gave them to me. They're mine. No, Desiree. Or should I call you Diana? She froze. What? Diana Vasquez, that's your real name, isn't it? Interesting past. You... She grabbed the vase and threw it at him. Tate barely managed to dodge it. You think you figured me out? You're just a pathetic rich boy who fell for a pretty face. That's true, he said, slowly moving toward the door. But now it's over. Nothing is over. She grabbed the phone. "I'll call everyone, all the newspapers. I'll tell them how you stole money from the bank, how you cheated on your wife." "Go ahead." Tate opened the door. "Just don't forget to tell them about your past scams. I'm sure the police will be happy to revisit some old cases." Her face contorted into a vicious mask. "I'll destroy you." "No, Diana. You've already lost." He left, hearing something crash against the wall behind him. In the elevator, he took out his phone and dialed Meredith's number. "I got everything. I'm on my way home." "Good." Her voice was cold. "Leave it with the security guard. I'll check it." "Meredith, maybe we should talk?" "There's nothing left to talk about, Tate." She hung up. Tate leaned against the elevator wall, feeling deadly tired. Everything was falling apart. His career, his marriage, his reputation. And for what? For a woman who saw him as nothing more than a wallet? An hour later, he handed the briefcase to the security guard at the Randalls' mansion. Inside was a note. "I'm sorry. I'll make everything right." Meredith found it when she was checking the jewelry. She crumpled it up and threw it away without even reading it. The heirloom necklace took its place in the safe, and the divorce papers were already on the table, waiting to be signed. The circle was complete, but that wasn't the end of the story. "Vivian, dear, we need to meet," Meredith said on the phone, looking at photos of Desiree in the latest issue of Boston Trust. "Yes, it's urgent. It concerns one of your models." An hour later, she was sitting in the editor-in-chief's office. Vivian Russell, her friend from college, carefully studied the file compiled by the detective. "My God," she said, taking off her glasses. "Is this the girl we were going to put on the cover of the next issue?" "Exactly," Meredith said, taking a sip of her espresso. "Think of the scandal that will erupt when her past comes to light. I'm sure the advertisers will be thrilled." "I'm canceling the shoot." Vivian picked up the phone. "And I think I'll take a look at all her previous work. We don't need any problems." By noon, Meredith was entering the Harringtons' mansion. Catherine, the wife of the bank's chairman of the board, met her in the winter garden. "Meredith, dear, I'm so glad to see you." They exchanged air kisses. "I'm terribly upset about this whole thing." "What is it exactly?" Meredith feigned surprise. "Oh, you mean that girl who's been hunting married men? Yes, that's an unpleasant situation." "They say she tried to blackmail several members of the board of directors?" "I have no idea," Meredith smiled. "But you know, I heard an interesting story about her past. Apparently, she used to have a completely different name." In the evening, Meredith arrived at the Algonquin Club, an exclusive establishment frequented by Boston's high society. She deliberately chose the time of the traditional tea party, when the ladies exchanged the latest news. "Meredith, dear." Eleanor Cabot, chairwoman of the charity committee, waved to her. "Join us." 5 women were sitting at the table, whose husbands controlled half of the business in the city. "We were just discussing that awful scandal," Beatrice Lowell chirped. "They say that girl is a real adventuress." "Oh yes." Meredith sank elegantly into her chair. "Can you imagine? She's not even a real model. She used fake documents to get into the agency." "Really?" The lady's eyes lit up. "And that's not all." Meredith leaned closer, lowering her voice. "They say she had connections with some very shady characters in Miami." An hour later, she left the club, knowing that by morning the whole story would be all over town, embellished with new details. That evening, Vivian called. "All the major magazines and agencies have been informed about her past. No one will want to have anything to do with her." "Thank you, dear." "You know," her friend said with a smile in her voice, "I always said, don't mess with a woman from a good family, especially Randall." Meredith smiled as she looked at the family necklace that had been returned to its place. "This is just the beginning, Vivian. Just the beginning." That same evening, Desiree received notification that all her scheduled shoots had been canceled. And in the morning, her agent informed her that her contract had been terminated. The ripples spread. and very soon the wave would engulf those who dared to cross Meredith Randall Holbrook. Desiree's morning began with a fit of hysterics. A message from her agent Mark lit up her phone screen. "Vivienne is canceling the contract. There's nothing I can do." It was the fourth rejection in a week. Yesterday, a cosmetics brand had ended their relationship. The day before that, a jewelry company, and the day before that, her favorite photographer had canceled a shoot for a glossy magazine. What the hell is going on? She dialed her agent's number. "Desiree, listen." Mark's voice sounded tired. "The situation is complicated. There are rumors going around town." "I don't care about rumors. Are you my agent or what?" "Not anymore," he paused. "The agency is terminating your contract. I'm sorry." She threw her phone against the wall. Then she rushed to her laptop to check her portfolio on the agency's website. The page wouldn't load. Error 404. In a panic, Desiree started checking other websites. Her photos were disappearing one by one, as if someone was methodically erasing all traces of her career. The phone rang. It was her landlord. "Miss Vaughn? About the rent. Tate paid for 6 months in advance. I'm afraid the payment was canceled. If you don't pay by the end of the week." She hung up in a rage and dialed Tate's number, answering machine, again and again. "You piece of trash," she screamed into the void. "You think you can just get rid of me like that? I have all our photos, all our correspondence. I'll destroy you." The phone was silent. Tate had blocked her number. The mirror reflected her haggard face with smudged mascara. She tried to pull herself together. After all, she still had connections. She could. The phone rang. A message from the photographer she had been working with for the past 3 years. "I'm sorry, baby. It's nothing personal, but I can't risk my reputation." Attached to the message was a link to an article in the Boston Herald. Desiree opened it and froze. Model or fraud? The dark past of Desiree Vaughn. Photos from her police file, statements from former victims, the story of the fake documents. "Meredith," she whispered, "it's all her." In desperation, Desiree dialed the number of the editor of Boston Style, who just a week ago had promised her the cover. "Julian, it's all a lie, I can explain." "Don't bother," his voice was cold. "And in the future, don't call the editorial office, ever." She sank to the floor amid the scattered designer clothes. The phone continued to buzz with messages, each one worse than the last. Canceled contracts, broken agreements, demands for the return of advances. The doorbell rang. Standing on the doorstep was a courier with an eviction notice. "Sign here, Miss Vasquez." She flinched when she heard her real surname. That evening, sitting in her dimly lit apartment with a glass of whiskey, Desiree tried to come up with a plan. She could try to contact the journalists and tell them her side of the story. Her phone rang, a message from an unknown number. "Don't even try. Otherwise, certain people in Miami will find out where you are." She froze. Only 2 people knew about this, her ex-partner who had stayed in Florida and, "Damn Meredith Randall," Desiree whispered, finishing her whiskey. "Damn bitch." The next morning, the concierge found the apartment empty. Desiree had disappeared, leaving behind only a pile of fashion magazines with her photos, the last reminder of a career that had ended as suddenly as it had begun. Monday began for Tate with an email from the Internal Audit Department. "In connection with the audit that has begun, please provide complete documentation for all transactions for the past year." He didn't have time to finish reading before James Porter entered the office. "Holbrook, I need to talk to you." Tate looked up. Porter looked unusually serious. "Until the audit is complete, you are suspended from managing the Asian portfolio. All your projects are being transferred to Michael Dobson." "But I've been working on these deals for 2 years." "And now the auditors have found serious violations," Porter said, placing a folder on the table. "By the way, Starting tomorrow, you're moving to the office on the third floor. The former storage room? Tate paled. Your office is needed for the new managing director. By lunchtime, the news had spread throughout the bank. As Tate walked down the hallway, he caught people glancing at him. Conversations around the coffee machine died down as he approached. Mr. Holbrook, his assistant Lauren looked embarrassed. Mr. Chang is asking to transfer his account to another manager. What? But we've been working with him for 5 years. He said. He lost confidence. By evening, the list of lost confidence had grown to 10 of the largest clients. Tate sat in his office, staring at the emptying shelves. Tomorrow, all of this would be moved to a storage room on the third floor. The phone rang. A message from the chairman of the board. I'm awaiting an explanation for the $300,000 transferred to Divvy Consulting. His hands trembled. He dialed his lawyer's number. Brad, I need help. I'm sorry, buddy. His friend's voice sounded guilty. I can't represent you anymore. Conflict of interest. I'm working for Meredith now. The new office smelled of dust and old papers. Tate was arranging things when there was a knock at the door. A courier with documents. Mr. Holbrook, sign here. A package from a law firm. Inside were divorce papers neatly marked where his signature was required, and a note in Meredith's handwriting. I advise you to sign without objection. Otherwise, the next documents will be for the prosecutor's office. Tate sank into a creaky chair. The phone rang on the desk. Internal Audit wanted an explanation for another suspicious transaction. It was getting dark outside. The sound of dripping water from a faulty tap echoed through the empty office. Tate took out a pen and began signing the documents, one after another, agreeing to all of Meredith's terms. It was the end of his career at Boston Trust, the end of his marriage, the end of everything he had built over the past 15 years. And somewhere in the city, his wife was methodically destroying not only his life, but also the life of the woman for whom he had lost everything. And the worst part was that he deserved it. Scandal in Boston high society. How a con artist tried to destroy the Randall dynasty, screamed the headline in the Boston Herald Society column. The article took up a whole spread with photos and eye-catching quotes. Tate sat in his tiny office on the third floor, rereading the article for the third time. The journalist spared no one, not him, not Desiree, especially Desiree. Diana Vasquez, known in modeling circles as Desiree Vaughn, has a rich criminal history, the article began. This was followed by a detailed account of her past scams with comments from former victims. The phone rang. Another journalist. Mr. Holbrook, would you like to comment on the situation? He silently pressed reject. On the other side of town, Desiree was rushing from newsroom to newsroom, trying to tell her side of the story. It's all lies, she shouted in the Boston Globe's editorial office. We were truly in love. Tate gave me the jewelry himself. The next day, the article was published. Scandalous model claims she made a banker fall in love with her. Sources say it's another attempt at fraud. Tate's phone was ringing off the hook. Former friends, business partners, colleagues. Everyone wanted to know the details. Some didn't even hide their schadenfreude. Hey, Holbrook, someone shouted in the cafeteria. I hear your girlfriend is dancing in a strip club in Miami now? Laughter, whispering behind her back. Sideways glances. Desiree tried to give an interview to a local TV station. Her words were edited to make her look hysterical and a liar. Memes with her photos and scathing comments appeared on social media. How much do you think it costs to ruin a banker's career? Read the caption under one of them. Ask Diana Vasquez. She's an expert. In Boston's private clubs, the story grew with new details. Everyone felt it was their duty to add something of their own. They say she tried to blackmail half the board of directors. And I heard she has connections to the mafia. Poor Meredith, such a decent woman. Tate stopped showing up at his favorite restaurants. Members of the golf club studiously avoided him. Even at church, people moved away from him. One morning, he found a copy of the Boston Riviera on his desk. On the cover was his photo with the headline, "How One Wrong Move Can Ruin a Career, the Story of Tate Holbrook's Downfall." That same day, Desiree received the final blow. Her interview with the tabloid in which she tried to justify herself was turned into a mockery. Confessions of a Gold Digger. How to Make a Millionaire Fall in Love with You and End Up with Nothing. She locked herself in her apartment, turned off her phone, and drew the curtains. But even through the walls, she could hear her neighbors discussing her story. Meanwhile, at the Randall mansion, Meredith was calmly perusing the morning papers. Her plan had worked perfectly. Boston society had made its choice. And that choice was not in favor of the upstart who had dared to challenge one of the city's oldest families. Tate stepped out of the elevator on the first floor of the bank and heard someone whistling the tune of Femme Fatale. Laughter. Whispers. He adjusted his tie and quickened his pace. Another day of public humiliation lay ahead. But he had no choice. He had to pay the bills. For all his sins. The office of the law firm Bradley, Marsh & Partners greeted Meredith with subdued lighting and the smell of expensive leather. She had deliberately chosen the early morning to sign the documents, wanting to avoid prying eyes. Tate was already waiting in the conference room. Haggard and wearing a rumpled suit, he looked 10 years older. "Good morning," Meredith nodded, sitting down opposite him. Between them lay an impressive stack of documents, 15 years of marriage, reduced to paragraphs and clauses of an agreement. "All terms remain in effect," Meredith's lawyer began. "The house on Beacon Hill, the summer cottage in Cape Cod, half of all financial assets." Tate nodded silently, mechanically signing page after page. His hand trembled slightly. "And, of course, the non-disclosure clause," the lawyer continued. "Any public comments about the reasons for the divorce will be considered a breach of the agreement." "I understand," Tate said hoarsely. When everything was signed, Meredith stood up. "Leave the house keys with the security guard." "Meredith." She paused at the door. "What? Can I come over tonight? To pick up the last of my things?" She hesitated. "At 7. I'll be home." It was a damp evening. Tate stood at the entrance to their former home, staring at the lit windows. How many times had he come back here after work, convinced it was for good? Meredith opened the door. Boxes with his belongings were already standing in the hall. She had prepared everything in advance. "I thought maybe we could have a drink to say goodbye." She walked silently into the living room. She took out a bottle of Macallan, his favorite whiskey. "Remember when we bought this house?" Tate looked around. "You said right away, this is it." "I remember," she said, pouring whiskey into glasses. "You wanted something more modern, but you insisted on Victorian style, and you were right." They sat in the semi-darkness, surrounded by ghosts of the past. Every object in the room held memories. "Why Tate?" Meredith asked suddenly. "Why her?" He twirled the glass in his hands. "I don't know. I really don't. She was different, bright, dangerous. And I was just a reliable wife." "No," he looked up. "You were everything, and I was too stupid to appreciate it." Meredith finished her whiskey. "You know what's funny? I really loved you. All 15 years of it. And now? And now?" She stood up. "Now I just don't care." Tate stood up too. "Can I at least go upstairs? Say goodbye to the house?" She nodded. He slowly climbed the stairs. Their bedroom, his study, the guest rooms. They had once dreamed that their children would grow up here. When he came back downstairs, he saw Meredith standing at the window. "I'm sorry," he said quietly, "for everything." "It doesn't matter anymore," she said without turning around. "Just go." He picked up the boxes and headed for the door. He paused on the threshold. You know what's the worst part? I can't even say she was worth it. No, Meredith finally turned around. The worst part is that I knew it from the very beginning. The door closed. Meredith was left alone in the empty house, where every object reminded her of 15 years that now seemed like someone else's life. She took out her phone and dialed the realtor's number. Jane? Yes, I've made up my mind. Let's put the house up for sale. It was time to start a new chapter, without Tate, without memories, without regrets about what might have been. The dismissal was short and formal. Tate sat in the chairman's office, listening to the standard phrases about loss of trust and incompatibility with corporate ethics. The voluntary resignation agreement lay on the table in front of him. This is the least painful option, Harrington said. The bank won't press charges for misuse of funds and you'll leave quietly. The security guard escorted him to the table. His personal belongings fit into one box: photos, his favorite mug, a few books. 15 years of his career fit into a cardboard box. On the same day, Desiree received an eviction notice. The concierge saw her leave in a taxi at 4 in the morning with 2 suitcases and a bag of cosmetics. The apartment was left littered with fashion magazines and empty bottles. She was seen at the airport, Meredith's private investigator reported. She bought a ticket to Miami. She left unpaid bills at 3 restaurants and owes rent. Meredith sat in her new office. She had just opened her own architecture firm. On the table was a letter that had arrived that morning. No return address, printed on plain paper. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but every day I wake up thinking about how I destroyed the most precious thing in my life. You were everything to me, and I was blind. The handwriting could have been Tate's, or was this another one of Desiree's manipulations? Meredith couldn't tell. She got up and went to the fireplace. The fire quickly consumed the paper, turning the words to ash. The news reported major layoffs at Boston Trust Bank. Tate's name wasn't mentioned. He was just one of many managers who had been let go. That evening, Vivian called. "Did you hear? Your friend showed up in Miami. She's trying to get into a local modeling agency." "She's not my problem anymore," Meredith replied, staring at the family necklace in the display case. The past was behind her. The jewelry had been returned to its rightful owner. Justice had prevailed. But for some reason, there was no joy, only fatigue and a strange emptiness. The next day, she received an invitation to a charity event, her first since the scandal. Boston society was waiting for her return. Life went on. For some, it was starting over. For others, it was ending in ruin. And the letter continued to burn in the fireplace, carrying with it the last words of forgiveness that no one deserved. Autumn Boston greeted the anniversary of the divorce with golden leaves and a cool breeze from the bay. Meredith stood at the panoramic window of her new office on the 20th floor of a modern building in the financial district. Randall Architects had already earned a reputation as one of the most innovative firms in the city. Her gaze slid over the model of a new project, a cultural center that was to become her calling card. Critics were already calling the project the rebirth of Boston modernism. The phone rang. It was her assistant, Grace. "Miss Randall, the museum has confirmed receipt of the collection. They are delighted." Meredith smiled. The decision to donate the family jewels to the Boston History Museum had not been an easy one, but it had proved to be the right one. Now the necklace, earrings, and bracelet were part of the permanent exhibition Treasures of Old Boston. "And one more thing," Grace continued. "The organizing committee for the charity evening called. They confirmed your attendance next Friday." "Yes, of course." Meredith put down the phone and picked up the latest issue of the Boston Review. On page 30 was a small article. Former Boston Trust Bank executive declares bankruptcy. Tate Holbrook, once a rising star in the financial world, had lost everything. His attempt to start his own investment company had failed. No one wanted to deal with a man with a tarnished reputation. The latest rumors said he had moved to Seattle, where he had found work as a junior financial advisor at a small firm. Lonely and aging, he was trying to start over in a city where no one knew him. News about Desiree also reached him from time to time. After a failed attempt to settle in Miami, she moved to Las Vegas. She worked as a hostess in a casino and tried to return to modeling, but the doors were closed everywhere. Her story became a warning to other women seeking wealthy husbands. "Miss Randall," Grace peeked into the office. "Professor Alexander Cortez is waiting in the conference room. It's about the university library project." Meredith nodded. She had met the architecture professor several times before, first at work, then by chance at a modern art museum, then at a symphony concert. His intelligence, calm confidence, and subtle understanding of art attracted her. Before leaving, she paused in front of the mirror. An elegant black dress, a string of pearls around her neck, simple and noble. She no longer wore her ancestors' jewelry, preferring to create her own history. The charity ball went perfectly. Boston society recognized her not just as the heiress to the Randall dynasty, but as a successful, independent woman. Alexander, who accompanied her, was universally admired. As they danced, he asked quietly, "What are you thinking about?" "How strange life is," she replied. "Sometimes you have to lose something to find yourself." Later, at home, she took out an old photo album. 15 years of marriage captured on glossy paper, young and happy faces, plans for the future, dreams. She closed the album and went to the window. The city below was aglow with lights, promising new opportunities, new horizons. Tate's betrayal and the affair with Desiree had taught her the most important lesson of her life: never let others determine your worth. In her desk drawer was another letter from Tate, which had arrived a week ago. He wrote about his remorse, about understanding his mistakes, about how emptiness and loneliness had become his constant companions. He didn't ask for forgiveness, only understanding. Meredith didn't reply. Some bridges are better burned to the ground. In the morning, she woke up feeling light. Ahead of her lay a new day, new projects, new opportunities. Alexander invited her to a contemporary art exhibition followed by dinner. In the Boston History Museum, the Randall necklace sparkled in a display case, telling visitors a story of tradition, betrayal, and justice. Next to it was a plaque, "Gift of Meredith Randall," a symbol of the enduring values of Old Boston. Tate sometimes saw these jewels in his dreams. They haunted him, reminding him of the price of ambition and weakness. In his small Seattle apartment, he was learning to live again, realizing that some mistakes could not be corrected. And Desiree. She was still searching for her path, moving from city to city, from one role to another. But the golden age was over, and she knew it better than anyone. Everyone had learned their lesson, everyone had paid their price, and everyone went on with their lives, some with their heads held high, some trying to forget the past, and some still chasing illusory dreams. But that's a whole other story.